Hey, my name is Sean, otherwise known as Venom Fang X, which is probably the weirdest nickname that any Christian has ever gone by. I want to explain kind of why I became a Christian, coming from a Jewish and atheist background. I know that might seem like a contradiction at first, so let me explain. You guys might want to also know what's up with my nickname, because I get that question a lot, so I might as well answer it. Venom is a Marvel Comics character who was formerly a bad guy who became a good guy, and I think that's kind of poetic in a way. Anyways, Venom Fang, it's a super move from a game called Marvel vs. Capcom where Venom does the Venom Fang. And then there's another Capcom game called Mega Man X, and that's where I got the X, so Venom Fang X. Anyways, hope that clears up the issue for you. Let's get back on topic. I wanted to talk about my testimony. I want to talk about how someone who was raised Jewish, was an atheist for pretty much their entire life, becomes a Christian. And the reason I want to explain that is twofold. Number one, for Christians who are just curious how, who I am, where do I come from, what's my background, how did I become a believer? For you, this might be edifying and interesting. If you're an atheist, I'm going to try and make sure by the end of this video that you are not an atheist anymore. And I'm sure that there will be a few of you. If you are one of those few, this is going to be very exciting for you, because when you come to faith in God, things look differently. I mean, I've heard the same from other people. You don't look at the trees the same way no more. Anyways, let's start from the beginning. I was raised in Hebrew school. I was raised Jewish. My parents are Jewish. I was kicked out of Hebrew school at a young age for preaching that we came from monkeys and that I didn't believe in God and that the Big Bang made us all that stuff. So here I was at a very young age. I think I was 7 or 8 years old. I was preaching there was no God. And I continued that way for pretty much my whole life up until June 28th, 2006, which was 2 years ago. Today's 2008. I'm now 22 years old, so I spent from the age of 7 till the age of 20 as an atheist. That's a long time. So not much to tell you about those years, just a whole lot of blah. Being an atheist is so easy. It is so easy. It's like the last day of school. That's what atheism is. It's like here you are in a structured system, school, or belief in God, and then, all of a sudden, school's out, which is kind of like, there's no God, wonderful, now we can do whatever we want. And you party, and you do whatever you want, and you party, and you party, and you party, and the party ends. And the party ends for one of two reasons. Either you get bored and you realize that partying has no substance to it, which is why eventually you get a job, you get a life, you stop partying, you have some kids, you settle down. That's typically the pattern. Or you come to faith in God. One or the other. Basically, atheism is like that. It's like the last day of school. That's really exciting when you're young, and as you get older, it kind of loses its appeal, because kind of the structure and the meaning and the purpose you kind of need, because purposelessness, meaninglessness, is kind of lame. Now, am I saying I only believe in God because I was looking for meaning? No! Do you know how much easier it is to be partying all the time? Are you joking? It's much easier. Look at the amazing atheist, he gets to swear, he gets to... I'm not picking on you, TJ. Just anyone who's an atheist. I'm not saying you only believe in atheism because you don't want to be responsible to God, although I suspect that's a big reason. It's just total and absolute freedom. In fact, I think it was it Nietzsche? I think it was Nietzsche. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was him who said, because he didn't believe in God, I think he said, we are absolutely, horrifically, in horror, we are horrifically free. Meaning, there's no purpose, it's kind of a scary thought. Now, once again, do I only believe in God because it's scary to not believe in God? No, like I said, I was an atheist. So, let's get back on topic because we don't have much time. How did I go from being an atheist to a believer in God? Like I said, and I'm not a typical example because I was raised in Hebrew school, so this might not apply to everyone, but I still think the logic is sound. I was raised in Hebrew school, so I believed in these Jewish stories, stories like Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, the Flood, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the Exodus, Moses, the Ten Commandments, Israel, Jerusalem, King David. If you haven't heard these stories, obviously you haven't read the Bible, or you don't know much about it, or you weren't raised in any kind of biblical background. That's okay. My point was, these were Jewish stories. This was in the Torah. I thought this was the Jewish religion, and the Christians had their religion, the Buddhists had theirs, and everyone's just making up stories. That seemed to be my logic, because as an evolutionist, I believed in evolution, I figured that religion evolved as well. People made up stories, they added to their stories, and people are making up all kinds of stories all over the place. That seemed to be logical at the time. Here's the problem. June 28, 2006, I started watching these creationist videos. Out of curiosity, wanted to see what they thought. This is what struck me. While there is beautiful, wonderful evidence for the existence of the intelligent designer, what struck me as even more amazing than that was this. The Christians, these non-Jews and Jews, there are Christians who are Jewish, like me, the Christians primarily are not Jewish. They are Gentiles, non-Jews. And they believe in Adam and Eve, Moses, the Exodus, King David, Jerusalem, Israel, the flood, Noah's Ark, all that stuff. They believe all of it. In fact, they use the Jewish scriptures, their Old Testament. That struck me as a little weird. I said to myself, how is it that the Gentiles believe in the God of Israel? That got me thinking. When did that happen? When did the Jewish stories get given to the Gentiles? 2,000 years ago, it turns out. A man came by the name of Jesus, Yeshua, who was a Jew. He claimed to be the Jewish Messiah. He was rejected by the Jews according to prophecy written before Jesus was born, found in the Jewish scriptures, which I can go to a synagogue today and find. A synagogue is a Jewish worship center. And I'll give you an example. Isaiah 53 says the Messiah would be bruised and beaten and killed for atonement of the sins of the world, be rejected by his own people, received by the Gentiles, that's Isaiah 49, then raised from the dead. Those prophecies alone, and then of course on top of that, Daniel 9:24 through 26 says the Messiah had to come before the destruction of the Second Temple, which was 2,000 years ago. So this man had to come before the destruction of the Temple 2,000 years ago, be rejected by the Jews, received by the Gentiles, and it happened. Now, could they have concocted the story of Jesus Christ just to make it look like he fulfilled the prophecies? Perhaps, but that doesn't explain why the Gentiles received him and the Jews rejected him, and now here we are 2,000 years later, and billions of Gentiles believe in the God of Israel, including me. So, it seemed from that, just from a biblical prophecy point of view, it seemed the God of Israel had revealed himself to the Gentiles exactly in the manner that he said he would. That struck me very hard. And that might just because I come from a Jewish background, maybe not. That might not work for you, works for me, but fine, there's other good reasons. So I'm looking at the simplest life, and it's funny to talk about life as simple, because it ain't simple, it's not simple. So let's talk about the simplest life, probably a single cell. If you know how complicated a single cell is, look up, you guys got Google. Google is a very helpful resource. Go on Google and just look up this cell and look at all its parts, the nucleus and all that goes into a cell. And then I want you to imagine blowing up a single cell to the scale of a human being. So imagine a very large single cell. And what you'll notice is a lot of moving parts, a lot of intricate working parts. Would you ever be able to believe that a cell, a big cell, could ever form by chance? The answer is no. You're looking at the parts and you're saying, well, that couldn't have formed by chance, and all those intricate parts that are all moving, they could never assemble by chance, not to mention the parts themselves couldn't assemble by chance. So you also need to keep in mind that what is true on a large scale is also true on a miniature scale. If the parts, let's use an aeroplane as an, the microphone again, because the microphone's here. If a microphone could not form by chance on this scale, if I shrunk it down to a microscopic scale, does that make a microphone more plausible to happen by chance? No. In fact, I'd say it makes it even more improbable. The smaller something is, the more complex it is, or the harder it is to make. So, life could not have formed by chance, and this is the crux of the issue. An evolutionist will say that they think that the first life formed in some primordial soup billions of years ago from which all life came. However, they weren't there when it happened, they've never observed that happening, and they have no proof that it could happen. On that basis alone, you have no reason to believe in evolution. You have no reason to believe it, or certainly not to believe that life formed without God. There is no intellectual reason to believe that, because life shows evidence of design, and therefore you have no reason not to believe in a designer, logically, if you're just being honest. If we're being honest here, that's honest. Also, you can't explain where all the matter came from. Some people say matter always existed. Great, I say God always existed. There's nothing intellectually dishonest about either position other than the fact that I don't think matter can be eternal due to the fact, well, I've made another video where I explain that at length, so check my video which I made called, what is that one called? Who Made God? I kind of explained that the universe can't be eternal, which is, I think, another great proof of God. All at once, it became incredibly clear to me. Okay, there's a God. He made everything. And he has revealed himself primarily, first, to the Jews, then to the Gentiles, through the person of Jesus Christ. For me, it's a no-brainer. It's as obvious as me standing here in front of you. And I hope, if you guys are intellectually honest, you will come to the same conclusion.